debate. And yeah, the organization is called Yoda. In the words of Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. So all the best to all the debaters. We will now begin round 2. I would like to invite the first speaker from the proposition on stage. Marha, marha.
A very good evening to our honourable panel of adjudicators, respected members of the opposition as well as members of the floor. This House believes that dakwah concert is a myth, and as the first speaker of the proposition, I will lay out the parameters as well as clear the misconception about dakwah. The second speaker, Huda, will then clarify how the very essence of dakwah and the very nature of concert cannot coexist. While Aslam, the third speaker, will then talk about how the intended message that is not received by the intended audience, while the last speaker, Shazana, will then conclude our arguments and justify why this motion must stand. The literal meaning of dakwah in Arabic is to call or to invite. The conceptual meaning or the technical meaning or in Islamic context is to call or invite non-Muslims to the way of the Lord. Its mission is missionary, and this definition is quoted by Ustaz Zulkifli Haji Ismail, who is a prominent da'i in Singapore who has been involved in da'wah and education since the 1980s and has worked with groups such as Darul Arkam Association, Pergas, Muiz, as well as Sharia Court. He emphasized that the way da'wah is conducted has to be appropriate, and the conditions must be carefully weighed out to how the message is being set forth. This is to ensure that the relay of the message for a da'wah to occur has to be correct, precise, and with clarity. Mr. Shahirah, one of Malaysia's renowned speakers in interfaith dialogue, has also restricted the da'wah definition to non-Muslims. And he reasoned out, has the word, for one to do da'wah, they have to invite someone from outside to come inside. And it does not make sense for someone who is already inside to be invited inside. Well, which brings me to my point about clarifying the misconception of da'wah and what it entails. Some Muslims may refer to da'wah as something that is the literal meaning of it, which is to call or to invite, and thus may extend their understanding of da'wah as something to both Muslims and non-Muslims. However, ladies and gentlemen, they fail to understand and distinguish the difference, as quoted by Ustaz Zulkifli, has that calling a Muslim to Islam or educating or improving the plight of the Muslims towards achieving the teachings of Islam already has a specific terminology, which is Islam, and Islam is not something to be confused with da'wah. My learned friends, now that we have established that point, let's move to the definition of the word concert. Concert is defined by Oxford Dictionary is a musical performance given at a public place, and it can encompass several performances or compositions. By nature, a concert is something that is driven by profits and is heavily commercialized. Because for a concert to be considered successful, they have to generate profits, and or at least for that matter, break even. This have to include wide publicity as well as to have substantial crowd turn out for them to continue in the long run. The word myth, which comes from the Greek word mythos, is defined by Oxford Dictionary as an exaggeration or an idealist conception of something or someone. Now that we have defined the word da'wah and concert has separate entities, if we were to define it conceptually, da'wah concert, it would literally mean, ideally, ladies and gentlemen, ideally, live performances with the sole purpose of da'wah. And the debate today is centered primarily on whether da'wah and concert can coexist together, in which this House believes is not. This House shall prove that the very essence of da'wah and the very nature of a concert cannot coexist, rendering it to be a myth, which we have emphasized upon as an exaggeration or idealized conception. So we on the proposition team will challenge the opposition team to prove to us how this da'wah concerts, if it exists, is attended by primarily non-Muslims. how the intention and knowledge of da'wah is being set upon before, in the process of the concert, and at the end of the concert. We also want to set you to prove to us how these concerts have the intended message received by the intended audience in a manner that is appropriate and in line with the ideals of Islam, as well as correctly, and the clarity of the message is being brought forth subsequently and consistently throughout our concert. This is so to prevent leave no room for misinterpretations to occur. Thank you.